Hey friends, welcome back. One of the things that a lot of people have been asking me about on the YouTube channel is why I don't do any videos about singing technique. And to be honest, the reason why I haven't is there are a lot of people on YouTube that like to troll vocal technique videos and pick them apart. I decided I am going to fight the good fight and I am going to dispel some vocal technique myths. So in this video, I'm going to go through 5 vocal technique myths that really tick me off. But first, I need coffee. Here at Stage Door Unlocked, it is a well-known fact that people who spread vocal misinformation, or as I call it a lot of times, vocal fake news, it really ticks me off. And I get really upset about it because it limits the careers of so many young performers. They really tick me off because so many of these myths can be dispelled with simple critical thinking. There is science that disproves so many of these myths, and so today I'm going to go through them. I'm going to try to stay calm. I have my coffee. I'm going to do my best. Let's do this. The first myth that I want to get right out of the way is that if you are classically trained, you can sing anything. Vocal technique tends to be divided between what we refer to as classical technique. This is going to be things like art songs, operas, etc., and what we refer to as CCM, contemporary commercial music. The sounds that are considered correct in classical training are a very specific set of sounds. Any sound that isn't one of those sounds, more often than not, is deemed unhealthy. The reason why I'm saying this in terms of classical training is there are so many sounds that are part of the color palettes of CCM-based music that you're just not taught in classical training. There are lots of things that are considered rules that you don't break in classical training that in contemporary music we use all the time. So to say that because you're trained classically you can sing anything is actually inaccurate. And if you are trained classically and then attempt to sing some of these contemporary styles using techniques from classical training, you could actually do damage in those styles. So it is very, very important that if you are really wanting to train in musical theater, pop, rock, jazz, etc., the sounds that aren't the real classically based genres, you're going to need to work with someone who is trained in those areas and trained in those areas in a healthy way. I would strongly suggest looking for someone who is trained in what is referred to as functional technique. If you are looking for a teacher that specializes in a style beyond musical theater and are struggling to find someone either online or in your area, please feel free to reach out to me. I have some incredible colleagues across the board in various genres, and I'd love to help you find someone that can really set you up for success. Myth number 2. Belting is unhealthy. All belting is an optimized use of resonance in a very, very specific range of your voice. We call belting calling voice. A lot of times we will use belting techniques that are just like calling across the room. That's a safety mechanism. Like if you're in danger, your voice is gonna like call out for help, right? So if it wasn't healthy to do, our bodies wouldn't naturally let us do it. Like it wouldn't be something that we could do in a survival scenario. If you think of the fact that we have voice cracks that happen, that's really because it's the vocal folds trying to protect themselves from damage. So if belting wasn't healthy, our body would probably come up with some relief valve like we have with voice cracking to make us stop doing it. It is so important that you are looking at belting from things that we already know how to do. It isn't about just singing loud to sing over an orchestra. It isn't about being big. It's about focused delivery of sound. It is so important that if we're going to say that belting is unhealthy, we need to actually ask, is the technique being used for belting actually correct belting technique? Is it the belting technique that is safe, healthy, repeatable? Belting is a very, very specific skill, and I would strongly recommend, if you're a musical theater performer, that you study with someone, again, in the functional singing realm, specifically someone who probably focuses on musical theater, because they're going to be able to help you navigate through the different types of belting needed in musical theater. Vocal myth number 3, everything in singing has to do with air. Now, yes, without air, singing doesn't happen. That's like saying you're not going to move your car without gas. True. But we give air too much credit. We spend so much time in the voice studio focusing on breath. But in contemporary styles of singing, especially musical theater, we're trying to a lot of times recreate human speech. We talk all day long. We know how to do that. If we can utilize things that we already know, using breath systems in a way that we naturally do them all day long, our body already knows how to do it. So then it's figuring out, how do we control the air to get it to do what we need it to do? It's all about getting the amount of air that we need, but it's also about getting the amount of air that our body can physically control. Controlling how the air leaves our body and controlling how the air comes in to our body. Being conscious of the breath choices that you make, and knowing not every breath needs to be a full breathe in from the diaphragm, because there are some phrases that don't need that, and you're actually going to take in too much air. And if you take in too much air but you haven't used it all, you're going to have air still left in your lungs, and you're going to develop what is called stale air, which is kind of this weird feeling of tension that comes from your diaphragm not being able to fully hit reset. I bet it will give you more vocal freedom if you focus on trying to use as little air as possible. Yes, I'm a minimalist. Get over it. Myth number 4, copying is bad. This one to me is something that I think has perpetuated due to technology. It is a well-known documented fact that artists, great artists, the masters, would have their students study their pieces that they did and actually copy them. Try to copy their technique down to the finest detail in the brush strokes. They learned how to develop their craft by learning the vocabulary of the other artist that they were copying. You learned by watching the master. Now, in singing, we didn't really have that. We couldn't really copy because we didn't have something that was in front of us for the long term. We didn't have something that we could listen to, sing, listen to, sing, listen to, sing, to try to match what they did. So we couldn't really learn from the masters until it had already been established that that wasn't something that we do. I am not saying that you should try to turn your voice into Renee Rapp. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you should study the greats. You should listen to the greats and analyze their sound and try to see what it feels like to sing when they do this thing. Babies learn to talk through imitation. That's why we sound like the adults in our lives. That's why we pick up accents when we go different places. Our brain hears voices and tries to copy them. That's how we learn how to make the sounds. I always say you cannot learn Japanese from a book. You have to hear it if you want to actually speak it. And the same thing goes with singing. You have to listen. And we have to give our students permission to listen, to copy, to analyze, to study, to imitate, to do the things that we naturally know how to do so that they can learn in a more effective way. It is not about being a carbon copy of their sound. I'm not saying that they should try to recreate a sound that isn't healthy. What I'm saying is that we should listen and say, what are they doing? Are they singing with a darker covered sound? Great. What happens when I sing with a darker covered sound? Does that work for me? Does it not? If they choose to go to a really bright E vowel on a particular word, what happens if I go to a really bright E vowel on a particular word? We all know our students are going onto YouTube and listening to these songs anyway. Teach them how to listen to good singers. Teach them how to analyze voices that actually are ones that we should be learning from. Give them permission to learn to listen. We have the technology to do things that Garcia and Reed did not have. And I bet you if they had the technology, they would be using it in their studios. Finally, myth number 5, sing from the diaphragm. All of my clients are sitting there going, I have been waiting for him to talk about sing from the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle. It connects to your vertebrae and to your ribs. It also is connected to the bottom of your lungs. Muscles contract. That's how they do their action. They only contract in one direction. That means they only work in one direction. So when you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and pulls the bottom of the lungs down, making the lungs get bigger. That in turn causes the expansion of the muscles of the ribs, called the intercostals, which allows for more air to come into your lungs. Then, because muscles only work in one direction, when you exhale, the muscle lets go and things kind of go back to normal. There are other muscles, though, right in the stomach area called the rectus abdominis, that's the six-pack, and the transverse abdominis, which is a muscle that runs really across your whole midsection, as well as your obliques on the sides, that are going to contract inward. As they contract inward, the air is going to kind of be squeezed out. You can control the rate of the airflow by controlling how fast those contract in. Again, I'm oversimplifying here for the sake of a YouTube video. I'm not trying to say this is everything you need to know about the vocal anatomy. I'm just saying here's some basics about how this works. The diaphragm just goes along for the ride. That's it. It just goes whoop when you exhale. You can control how fast the diaphragm goes up, yeah, but how you control that is going to be the other muscles that are actually in the process of contracting inward, which is their form of action. As a result, the diaphragm, no sound comes from the diaphragm. So actually singing from the diaphragm isn't a thing. Sound does not come from your stomach. Well, I mean, it does when you're hungry, but not this sound, not the stuff that comes from here. So singing from the diaphragm, the actual sound isn't coming from there. Also, we sing on the exhale. The diaphragm is only working on the inhale, so sing from the diaphragm, not a thing. That's it for today's video. I hope this helped dispel some myths for you. Is there a vocal myth that you've heard that you are uncertain of that you would like to hear me talk about? Feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. That's it for this video. As always, actors, you're awesome, be awesome, and I'll see you next time.